Welcome to the Entre Pastors podcast on YouTube. This is a show that helps pastors think, act, and thrive as prosperous entrepreneurs. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the Entre Pastors podcast on YouTube. My name is Jon Sanders. I'm one of the co-hosts here, along with my friend and sidekick, Les Hughes. And guys, we are excited to share this episode with you today. This is episode number 43, and we're titling it The Wealth of Connection because that is the title of the book that today's guest wrote. His name is Vincent Pugliese, and recently he has launched this brand new book called The Wealth of Connection. And here's the big idea that Vincent writes about. By the way, he's got an incredible story. He's done some awesome things in his life and in the world of entrepreneurship. But he talks about this idea that in business, especially in the world of online business, there's kind of a standard model, which is to create your product or service and then do whatever you have to do to hustle and get ahead and achieve and use people essentially to get people to buy your product or to buy your service. And in his new book, man, he totally turns that model or that paradigm upside down as he talks about the wealth of connection. And I would contend that as pastors, I make this case a lot. I think in some ways, we who are pastors have almost an unfair advantage out in the marketplace because of how ministry has trained us in certain people skills and leadership skills. And this would be one of those examples where I feel like if we read this refreshing book that Vincent is offering up to us, and if we follow that paradigm, pastors, in many ways, we're naturally gifted for this, or at least we're naturally prepared. We've been a little more conditioned to run a business focusing more on people first rather than our own selfish goals, instead having generous goals that include helping others and helping others get where they're trying to go. So this is an awesome interview. I can't wait to share it with you. Without any further ado, let's hear from this recent interview Les and I did with our friend Vincent Pugliese as he talks about his new book, The Wealth of Connection. Check this out. Well, Vincent Pugliese, I got to tell you, I woke up this morning excited when I saw on my calendar that we had you on our calendar to talk to today. Welcome to the Entre Pastors podcast, man. It's great having you on the show.
Thanks for having me on. I'm excited about this.
Yeah, I met you at the very first Entre Pastors live event that we did. So, one of our guests invited you to come and hang out for a little bit of that. So that's where I got connected with you. And after the event, go ahead.
I kind of snuck my way into that one.
Well, I'm glad you did, because after the event, we all went out to supper with some of us as a group, and I started to hear some of your story, and I was like, man, this guy's got an incredible story. So why don't you go ahead and just introduce yourself to our audience, tell us a little bit about who Vincent Pugliese is.
Yeah, it's a hard question because I feel like a cat with 9 lives. When people go, tell us your story, I'm like, well, which one? Do you want to know when I was, desperate and fired from my job when I was 22, starting over, or 32? So I've had a pretty interesting run at this. It's always been kind of non-conventional. I was never good in school. I never cared about grades. I never cared about any of it. And I always kind of thought that was just me. I was kind of a slacker. What I realized later on was it just didn't fit me. The organization and the structure of it and just the non-interest based way of learning just didn't matter to me. And I realized even at that age, I'm like, I'm not as dumb as everybody's telling me I am, because I can have conversations with adults and I can make them laugh and I can make them think, and I'm like, I'm almost suited better once I get out of here. So I remember even a friend of mine at senior year said, what are you going to do with your life? Because I grew up on Long Island. Like, everybody was going to these really nice colleges. And I was barely getting into Nassau Community College. I didn't find out I graduated until the day before school ended.
Wow.
It could have been summer school. I could have been left back. I mean, that's where I was at. But I remember saying to him, when he asked me what I'm going to do with my life, what am I going to do next? I said, I have no idea, but I'll figure something out. And I remember walking down the hallway and saying to myself, why did you say that so confidently? Because I really was confident when I said it. I knew this wasn't for me. And I knew once I had an opportunity to use my own skills, strengths, my own whatever, something's going to work out. And I don't know where that confidence came from, but it hurt me in the beginning because I tried a lot of different jobs. I was arrested. I had very little morals. It was a lot of problems that went on 17 through 22. But when I started figuring it out and I started realizing I could do it my way and I can really be creative in my own way, it started flourishing from there, beginning with a career in photography.
Yeah, and that career in photography, you did some really cool things, and you didn't start out doing all these amazing things. You started out like a lot of photographers, kind of struggling and trying to figure the whole thing out. But as you got more clarity and courage, I would say, to really follow your passion, like you ended up living the dream, at least for that season of your life, that you thought you wanted. So if you would just unashamedly share some of the highlight reel of what you were able to do in as a photographer and kind of how you built out that business. So don't hold back. Just tell us all the good stuff.
I'm going to tell you the bad stuff first.
Okay, we'll take that.
The first 6 years of photography in my life, I made around $20,000 total. So to me, that's when you know you love something that you continue on. Now, that was going to school, and that was part-time, and that was interning, that was all those different things. But my goodness, when I knew, like, I will drive across New York to New Jersey for some type of a news event and pay for it myself and pay for gas just for the chance of getting something that could eventually be a good picture, man, that told me I will go above and beyond for this. And it's like when you suffer so long and you fail for so long, you kind of realize when I get my shot, nothing's going to stop me. It wasn't ho-hum. And when I went back to school for it at 26, I remember, like, I'm not blowing this at all. I was locked in. And I remember a classmate of mine was 20, and there was nothing that was going to get me off point. And he's like, well, I'm kind of into philosophy and I'm kind of into this, and I like photography a little bit. I'm like, I knew he wasn't going to make it because he would not commit and go all in on something. To me, it was it. So I did everything you could. I bought cheap tickets to baseball games. I snuck down to the front row to ask the photographers in the photo pit photo questions. This is what this was my real school. Every night I would go to a different Yankees game or Met game, and I would learn the industry, on my own dime. And then I wound up making connections that way. I wound up, kind of bringing pictures and showing them, and they were kind of like, oh, okay, you're doing good. That led to an internship for $25 a day with Newsday in New York, 6th largest newspaper, but no budget for an intern. I didn't care. Just get me in the door, which led to an internship with the National Hockey League with Bruce Bennett Studios. That was free to begin with. So I was an intern. So I was called the Vintern. That was my nickname. And so then they elevated me and I got paid. I was now minimum wage. And so then they called me Minimum Wage. I had a nickname all sure. along the way. But that eventually led to being published in hockey magazines, trading cards, getting hired for the World Wrestling Federation during the Attitude Era, which was the big era of wrestling with Stone Cold Steve Austin. I traveled with them for 2 or 3 years during that circus, going back to school, winning International Sports Photographer of the Year, Hearst National Championship in Journalism, and going towards a career, which was my dream, which is being a professional sports photographer. And so I got to do that for 22 years, where I shot everything, World Series, Super Bowl, WrestleMania, Kentucky Derby. When the president would come, I would be with the president. I spent a day with the Dalai Lama walking around New York City. Muhammad Ali's birthday party, we got flown out for his 70th birthday party. Just this crazy stuff where it's like, well, if you are focused on something and you are not going to be stopped and you are going to work your hardest, things work out. And I'm proof that you don't need the degrees or the grades to do it. You need the patience and persistence to do it.
Yeah. Well, also somewhere in there, you did some weddings, right? Like that was a big part of your business. So speak to that just briefly, if you don't mind.
Yeah. The sports was great, but it didn't pay very well. And I had a newspaper job. My wife had a newspaper job, and we were at this moment where I just won International Sports Photographer of the Year, the biggest one that you could win, but I'm making $32,000 a year. And my wife wants to stay home with our almost first son. And I had a moment where, okay, I just win this major award. I'm working for a newspaper. We have a baby coming. This is where I finally get the raise. This is what everybody told me. And I went to my boss and I said, hey, it was our evaluation. And he praised me top to bottom and everything we'd done, going above and beyond. And he took off his glasses and he rubbed his eyes and he was like, but we can only give you 3%. And I'm like, I can't survive on this, right? I can't live on this. And he said, everybody else gets nothing. There's no raises going around. You did so good this year. We can give you 3%. And it was in that moment that I said, I'm done. I've been doing this for 10 years. It's never going to pay. And I have to feed a family. So I went home and I called my dad, who had his own business, to see if I could work for him. He lived in New York. I was in Indiana at the time. And he told me no. So I'm like, even my dad's rejecting me now. It was like the worst day ever. And he said something that changed my life. He goes, hey, I'm going to tell you this. You haven't listened. Maybe you're going to listen now. And he said, you have a skill, but you're not using it correctly. And those words changed my life. I said, what do you mean? And he said, you're settling. You're settling for $32,000 a year in benefits, but you've become a really good photographer. You didn't used to be, but you've worked really hard. He goes, you can do whatever you want. You could shoot weddings, corporate, commercial, magazines, anything. You can name your price and you can control your time, and you're settling for $32,000 a year in benefits and asking me for a job.
Wow.
That hurt. So I started calling photographers to see if I could work with them to eventually start our own business. They all turned me down. So I took the phone book, if you remember a phone book, I threw it against the wall and in frustration. And I said, they said, if you can't beat them, join them. I said, well, if we can't join them, we're going to beat them. So I called my 8-month pregnant wife to tell her we're starting a business. Like she needed any more stress. I tell her that we're starting a business. And she's like, what? So within a month, we had shot 3 weddings for free, built a portfolio, built a wedding business. Within a year, it was a 6-figure business. Within 3 years, we had paid off our house and all of our debt from it, quit our jobs. And that's where the freedom came into our life. And that's what we did for a good 12 years before this next portion came.
Yeah, which that'll be a good setup to keep the story going. But I just want to pause for a second for our audience, and I want them to notice something. As you're telling that story, Vincent, I'm just connecting some dots in my own head. You probably don't realize this, but your story is so similar to many pastors from the standpoint of they're doing something they're passionate about. They even feel called to it, and yet they're settling. They're not doing very well financially. They're getting peanuts for a raise, if there ever is a raise, and they're settling, at least in a financial sense of there's so much more that they have a skill set that they could be leveraging in the world for not only financial gain, but for ministry impact as well. But because they've settled for such a narrowly defined definition of what it means to be a pastor and where that takes place, they're missing out on so much more. So that resonates. I just wanted to connect the dots there, and appreciate you sharing that part of your journey and your struggle. So you built a successful photography business. Why aren't you still doing that? I mean, you had the freedom, you had all the money coming in from that, but that's not what you're doing right now. So keep the story going. And what made you move on from that?
I think we all have those crossroads moments. I've had 7 or 8 of them in my career where you had this option and it's going this way and it's fine, or it's uncomfortable, but it's not too painful. And then there's this other road that you can turn, and there's potential and there's excitement, but it's scary. And there's no guarantee to it. The left-hand side, there's guarantees to it. You know what you're going to get, but it's just not energizing for you anymore. And every time I come to that crossroad, I take it very seriously. And every step of my journey, there is that crossroad moment. And it literally could be a book on just those, because each one, and there's a bunch that I didn't take where I stayed on until the pain was too much. Well, I had that crossroad moment. I had that moment where I was like, okay, the money's great. It's been 6 figures for 12, 13 years. We don't work that much, right? Comparatively, in terms of, I could work 15, 20 days a year shooting. We post-process, we do other stuff, but I pretty much can control whatever we want to do. And I was just bored. I was just bored. And I was like, is this it? Is this really okay? I'm going to sit here. Money's going to be fine, but there's no real purpose to it for me. And that was a real big problem for me, because I'm like, we could have wrote it out. We could have had associates. We could have built the business. I could have run the business, and I would have just still felt this gnawing angst of like, I am not, I don't have the excuse of needing the money right now. I don't have the excuse I don't have time. There's no excuses to not doing what is purposeful to me, and that wasn't it. So I tried many times to change styles and perspective within the photography and ramp things up and make it different. And then eventually what happened was I was photographing a wedding, and there was a DJ there who was struggling. And he was a great DJ, but business-wise, he was terrible. We find that with a lot of artists. They're wonderful at their craft. They're terrible at business all the time. In the photography world, we see it all the time. So I sat down with him over dinner at this reception, and I'm coaching in this dark little room while we're eating salmon and cheesecake. And at the end of it, he's like, man, this is amazing. And he goes, I got to go get the reception started because the party's got to get started. It was the first time in my career I was like, I don't want to go out there. I wanted to stay here. Usually I'm like, okay, well, I'll go shoot. I didn't want to do it. And I wanted to keep talking to this guy. So I went home to my wife and I said, I think I'm done. I was like, what do you mean? It's like, I don't have it. And I said, but there's this other thing, like this conversation. If I could do that for a living, if I could do what I did with that guy, I would just be jacked up in terms of the work that I do. How do you do that? How do you build a coaching business to start? I had no idea. Do you get paid for that? But how do you give up a multiple, 6-figure business and beyond for something that you don't know? So I started just doing that. We didn't kill it immediately. We started just raising our prices. So we got less bookings on purpose. We intentionally killed it. Kind of priced ourselves out on purpose, but it would give us a runway. So I just started all over again. I love being a beginner in different things. Writing a book's being a beginner. You don't know what's going to happen. There's no guarantee. Love that. So I started coaching for free, just like I did with everything else, with photography and everything. And that led to referral after referral, then led to writing a book, which was called Freelance to Freedom. That led to a mastermind, which led to another mastermind, which led to, okay, well, I can't afford the mastermind. You have a smaller, lower price program, then a community, all different levels to it, coaching, live events. And it just kind of blossomed out from there. And before we knew it, the wedding photography business we pretty much just stopped taking bookings. And even now people think are you still shooting? I haven't shot for 5 years, and this is completely taken over and just grown out on its own.
Yeah. Well, Vincent, your story is a great example of what in our community we call the information-based pathway. Like, we have several different pathways we encourage pastors to consider. And one that we feel like they're really well suited for, most of them, is kind of what you're doing, where they're taking a message, their idea, blending it with the purpose that they feel called to bring to the world. And then, whether it's through writing or speaking or podcasting or YouTube or coaching or whatever, like, put that out into the world, build a business around that, monetize that. So here, now this is all just introduction. Now we're really getting to the good stuff here. Okay. So in that world, especially of online business and all of that, there's just so much out there in terms of how you build and market and grow a business, and how you sell to people. And it's so much of it is just self-focused. It's very ineffective. It leaves people feeling very frustrated. Recently, you wrote a book that is kind of turning all of that upside down. The title of your book is The Wealth of Connection, and you're really laying a foundation for how someone can build a successful business through people, through networking, through giving, through serving others. And I'd love to kind of steer the conversation in that direction, and we can go wherever you want to go with that. But when you see people trying to build and grow their businesses, kind of the normal way, we'll call it, like, why do you see problem in that? What was the idea behind starting this book? What was it that was frustrating you to say, man, there needs to be a non-best-selling book about this? And I say that because that's the title you claim is how do you say it? The non-best-selling author, Vincent Pugliese. So
that's right.
So yeah, what was it that caused you to write the book?
Getting enough people reaching out to me that did it with either desperation or just severe selfishness, where I had to kind of coax them away from the way they were taught, or the way they believe sales should be, which is just sleazy or dirty or however you want to say it, or just desperate, where we all know the methods. When you're new to it, you don't know the funnel of this and this and that, and the whole procedure of it. Once you're into it, you see what it's going on. And then you start seeing the approach that people do. It's just so me first, me focused approach to sales and business, that what are you really doing this for? Are you pretending like you like people so you get them to buy stuff, or do you really have something that is there to help someone? And I don't think it's nefarious as it might sound. I think so many people don't know another way. Mm-hmm. And they think this is the way everybody else is doing it. This is the way I bought into some other program. And I'll have to ask them, did you like it? Did you like the approach? Did you like the way that it was sold to you, and then the way that it came? And they usually do not. So it was something where I started realizing, man, all these people putting out podcasts, books, products, they put it all out there. They announce it on social media. They do all the things they're supposed to do, and they don't get results from it. They get a handful of people leave reviews. They don't get the downloads they want, and they wonder why it's not working. And you see this over and over. Like, just go to Amazon, just type in all these different books that do nothing, because they write a book thinking people care. And the truth is, nobody cares. And it's hard to understand that they don't care because you've not been a part of their life. You're doing this because you're trying to sell something. So what they realized was, oh crap, I wrote this book, it's not working. Oh, I really need to collaborate. Jon and Les, I need to get on their podcast. Well, Jon and Les don't know you, and they're probably not just going to have you on because you want to be on. It's going to be relationship based. They're going to want to know your story. Well, that doesn't work. So then they go, okay, well, you better connect with those guys. Well, they'll connect with you guys, but it'll be in a very much, hey, how do I get what I want from this? I saw this pattern happening over and over again. Well, then it's like, well, are you reaching out to them to figure out what they need? Are you curious about what their audience would need? What would be helpful? No, you're trying to go to them so you could sell a program. Well, you're not curious about what they're doing. You're interested in your own thing. Well, and then also it came down to, what are you doing this for? Are you doing this because you want to sell something to their audience? Or are you doing this because you have generous goals that are going to not only help their show, but help their listeners? And by that, it will help you as well if those things happen. So what I realized was everybody's doing it, not everyone, but a lot of people are doing it backwards. So I wrote the book backwards. I said, okay, where does it start? It starts with character. If your character is not good, no matter how successful you make it, it will crumble at some point. But if your character is strong, if you have generous goals over selfish goals, if I come on here and my purpose is to give the best interview for you guys and your audience as possible, and you come away happy and your listeners come away inspired, someone's going to buy the book, someone's going to get impacted by the book, and good things will happen. It happens down the road. Oh. So if your character is good, and then you go to your curiosity saying, hey, how can I help? What are you guys interested in? What are the problems that we're trying to solve for others? Those are foundational pieces, character and curiosity. If you have those things down, and it's not about what you want, when you go to connect with them, it's going to be on such a deeper level, because now there's the foundation built. Now we can have conversations, and it won't be so, hey, let me tell you about me and let me ignore what you're saying, like so many conversations happen. The beautiful thing is, once those three things are in place, you have character, curiosity, connection, and your network grows. The fun part happens next, which is collaboration, meaning we get to do this interview together. We get to maybe go on stage together. We promote each other. We help each other out. That's the way collaboration works. So all of a sudden, I get introduced to all these different audiences with whatever I'm doing, and expansion just grows. It can keep getting bigger. So when you do create something, whether it's a book or a podcast, whatever it is, this is what we figured out. Everything we launched seemed to work. Our podcast had 10,000 downloads from the first month. Each book we've done had 100 reviews within the first month of launching it. The membership site and the mastermind that we started, I didn't promote anything. I didn't market it. I didn't even go on Facebook about it. It was all relationship based from doing these things that when we put it out there were people that I was close to who were interested in it. We never had to do marketing. And every step of the way, from doing an online course with a guy that I met at a mastermind that made $52,000 in a week because of a collaboration, everything kept falling into place. Never got desperate, never worried about it, not a good marketer. We do a lot of business poorly, but it always seems to work out really well because we always follow this method as opposed to the opposite of what's being taught.
Vincent, one of the reasons that you really do connect well with the people that are in our community is that this is a community of people who serve others, right? I mean, their calling, their life work is to serve others in a specific way, sometimes in the context of a local church or ministry, but not always. Mm-hmm. And so they're resonating with this message, like they're amening you right now. But there is the person who's listening and saying, yeah, but I get it. But when does that start to impact, me being able to have a business and staying in business and growing that business, or even taking care of the family? In your case, you didn't mention a long ramp, and I'm glad, because that is honest and it's above reproach, and it's fair. That happens. can you just talk to somebody that is having a hard time with the ask anyway? You know, people in our world, like many, you can put them in the category of artists. These are creatives,
Yep.
you know, that we're talking about. And a lot of times they do have an issue with the ask. So for them, it's not so much a challenge to give, it's the other side of it. So can you talk about that as well, and how you can kind of strike that balance and still be authentic and give,
Yep.
but also have a business?
Yeah, we actually talked about it, you know, in our group today, in terms of, I did a big ask today in terms of a person in my network. And it turned out to, you know, the thing that I asked for didn't turn out, but something else came from it that was wonderful. Now, here's the difference. I have no problem with an ask. Really, this is not about, oh, you know, if we dove deeper and deeper into it, there were a lot of asks on my part on different things. It didn't just all, I gave you the general overview, but there's a lot of things that I had to do and I had to create. But the difference is, there's a big difference between doing an ask of somebody when you don't know them and an ask from somebody when you've built a relationship with them.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
That is the difference, because like, I'll speak on this. I spoke on Monday night about this, and I had somebody come up to me, and she's really sweet, but she's like, how can you help me do what I need to do? And I was nice to her, but I'm like that. And then she eventually came up to me and she apologized, because she realized we hadn't built up trust together for her to ask me to connect me to the people that she wanted me to. I'll be happy to do it. But that's the whole idea of the wealth of connection. When you can build out the network in different worlds, in different ways, in a very generous and helpful way, when you need that, they will be there for you. With my book launch, I had everybody jump out to help out, because I've been in their life for years and I haven't asked for very much. So the longer you can go without it, wonderful. I also say all the time, do what you have to do until you can do what you want to do. I am not beyond doing work that I need to do, knowing that the rewards will come later. And I think a lot of times people want the business to start quicker. I'm very, our biggest benefit in this, and maybe this is not everybody, I don't need much. Right. We could lose a whole lot of what we have and it really wouldn't affect me at all. I don't go by money. I don't go by stuff. So it's like, I was very content in my college dorm room. So that was a very big advantage for me, because it allowed me to do exactly what I wanted to do without having to pay the hefty bills for it. So the longer you can delay it, the better. But if I have to do a job to pay for what I have to do while I build my business on the side, like we did, I think it's a great way to do it. And I think it also eliminates a lot of the kind of entitlement, like, I deserve this business to be, I don't deserve it. I have to do the work to make it happen. And we all know it takes 3 years to make a business really hum. So I can do that business for a year and a half while I'm working somewhere else. But just like with us, with our photography, 2007, we called it the year of work. So you want to dive deep into it. I was working full-time at the newspaper. We had started the business. I gave you the real good cliff notes. Oh, we paid off the house and this and that. Well, 2007, I'm working full-time and we're doing 39 weddings that year. We had a 2-year-old and a baby that was born that year. It was the year of work for us. I did 2 weekends where I did triple weddings, meaning Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night. I remember driving home from one of those and my eyelids were closing and the traffic lights felt like they were falling on me because I was so tired. It's what I had to do to get to the point where I can go in and quit my job and have freedom. But when we quit the job, guys, I literally woke up and it was like, I don't have an assignment until next Saturday and I could do whatever I want until then. There's a lot of sacrifice that goes into it. It's just like an airplane taking off. There's a lot of work that goes into gassing that thing up and checking it out and getting the luggage on there, getting the food. But once that plane's in the air, smooth sailing. It's easy to launch the next plane once you got that going. That's the way we've always built our businesses. So you have to understand the beginning is going to be hard. It could be a year, 2 or 3, but the rewards once you get flying like that are unlike anything that you'll do otherwise.
That's so good to hear you say that. And it's great advice, because don't you think what we look at in somebody's highlight reel, we think that that's the whole game, don't we? You know, you with the sports background, you've got a 2 to 3 hour professional athletic event like a football game or even a baseball game. And then when they show a highlight reel on Sports Center that night, it's what, 15 seconds, maybe 20 seconds max. So that's real good advice right there.
And another sports analogy that goes to your point, guys, is I would photograph all these games. So I get to kind of see I love the behind the scenes look. I love being in the dugout or the locker room or on the sidelines, and you can hear the conversations. These are I was literally 2 feet away from LeBron James during the Eastern Conference Finals with a minute left, and they were charting out the game-winning play. To hear those stories from top-notch people and how they go about it, their calmness, their demeanor, I learned a lot from it. But I also learned from the beginning. I remember there's one pitcher for the Pirates when I shot in Pittsburgh. It was his rookie year. He was a good prospect, and he walked out to the mound, and he looked nervous, like crazy nervous, just stiff. Couldn't get the ball over the plate because 50,000 people there, and he got batted around, gave up 5 or 6 runs in 2 innings, got pulled. Well, he kept working. He kept doing it. It goes along with the story so well because he stayed with the team, and in his 5th year, I remember shooting him again. It was a day game, and I remember him walking out for the first inning, and he blew a bubble on his way out to the mound, chewing bubble gum. He looked at his new wife in the crowd, a little baby now, and he pointed at them and he winked. And he took the rosin bag and he tossed it around so loose, grabbed the ball. He's a lefty, struck out the side in the first inning, went 7 innings, gave up 2 hits, no runs, walked off, got a 5-0 win. Same exact pitcher, same exact field, different approach because of experience. First year, just like in business, tough, uncomfortable. We don't know what's going on. 5th year, loose as can be. He knows the players. He knows when he's throwing a curve or a slider. The first game, he's just trying to get over the plate. I think it's the same exact thing when it comes to business.
Love that. Vincent, I'm going to ask you to talk about what in the book you call your hour of giving. I love the practice. I love how you've kind of built that into the rhythm of your day. And I think it's something that a lot of others could maybe model after or something along those lines. So tell us a little bit, what is the hour of giving?
The hour of giving is my biggest form of marketing, as crazy as it sounds. 80% of the results that we get unintentionally come from this hour. And what this hour is just me being selfless. And because I'm selfish. And I say it in the book. I'm like, we all deal with this. I've got all my goals and I've got my dreams and my visions. And I'm a New York Italian guy who came from the world of journalism. If I have to get the shot, I'm going to get the shot. Mm-hmm. Whether I have to kind of bump past you to get it or whatever it has to take, I'm not going to lose. Like, I have that in me, which is good and bad. But what I realized the hour of giving was it can't be just about my goals. And this is what I learned 6 or 7 years ago. It can't just be about how do I sell? How do I get the numbers? It was, hey, how do I support the people around me first? How do I become less selfish by saying, hey, what do you guys need? How do I wake up thinking about the people in my life? Who do I need to connect together? Who do I need to reach out and give support to? Who do I need to leave a review for? Who do I need to just give support to that without any expectations? It was the biggest eye-opening thing for me to do that every day for an hour or 2 hours. And during those conversations where I'm not trying to sell anything, I have people saying to me, so what are you working on? Tell me about your mastermind. What everything I was working on, they started to get curious in because I wasn't trying to get anything from them. We were just having conversations. I wound up helping a ton of people in all these different ways because this felt so good. But at the same time, I built such a network of connections around me without any expectations that things just started happening. I'm like, this can't just be, a coincidence to this. So I basically spent an hour or 2 hours some days doing exactly what I said. If it's a podcast I listen to, leave a review. If it's a book that I read, share it online. If it's something I'm thinking about, I reach out to it. I have a list of different things that I do, and I do them daily, and I actually track them now. And it's, first of all, the most fun that I do in business. I could do that for 4 hours someday, but the amount of reciprocation that comes from that without asking or not even trying is beyond anything that I would do if I tried to market.
Yeah.
And it's just healthy. I mean, it's just personally healthy, even if nothing came from it, it's a healthy practice to have.
It absolutely, and it's the most fun. I'm like, well, I want to go back to it. And I'll tell you this, when I start feeling really selfish, when I start getting really kind of deep in my own goals, I will literally say, stop doing, I know the practice, go right back to that where you're just thinking about other people and it's nothing about what you're doing. And it's almost like if you have kids, you read the Hungry Caterpillar book, and the Hungry Caterpillar, if you remember, it ate all this crappy food throughout the book. And then at the end of the book, it eats through like a leaf, and then it feels so much better. That the hour of giving to me is the leaf. When I've ate all the crap food and I've done all the selfish stuff, when I go do that, like you said, it's just it's healthy. And I try to start the day with that. I try to make it a big part of what I do. And I think it's really the foundation of what we built.
That's great.
Recently I have a story that fits that well. I was in the morning hours. I just jumped into our Facebook community and asked a genuine question. How can I help you today? How can I help you get where you're going? And had a guy respond, and before the day was done, he and I were on a Zoom call together. And out of that, like, I truly did my best to, who do I know that I can connect you to help answer this need in your life? And before the call was done, there's potential for a very real business partnership that has great potential. So I don't know where it's all going to lead, but that wasn't what I led with. That wasn't the purpose of it. It was just, how can I serve you and help someone in our community? So it's a really powerful concept that you share. Something else that's kind of unique. I don't know if you mentioned this in the book or not. I can't remember, but I've heard it from some of your other talks on this, is the concept of a 5-year launch of this book. I mean, I've never heard of anything quite like that. So why does it take you 5 years to do it? It takes a normal author just 30 days to do.
Because 30 days doesn't work. It doesn't. It just doesn't. Everybody does the same thing, and it's kind of laughable. I'm not saying I say every. I'm one of those all or nothing people with my words. Sometimes I don't mean everybody, but I mean a lot of people. It's this formula of get a book launch team together, get them all in a Facebook group, do videos for them for a month, get them all to say they're going to leave reviews, launch the book, bug them all to do it. They do it for a couple days. Most of them don't do it. We've seen it happen over and over again. You get disappointing results. After a month, you get frustrated because you spent 2 years writing a book that nobody cares about, and then you give up and you don't write another book. Well, if I've heard that story from one author, I've heard it from thousands about it. So John Ruhlin, who's a friend of mine, he wrote the book Giftology. We talked about this a couple of years ago, and he said it's a 5-year launch. This isn't my idea. This was his idea. And I said, what do you mean 5-year launch? And he's good friends with Hal Elrod, who wrote The Miracle Morning. And The Miracle Morning, I believe now, is the best-selling self-published book of all time. Well, it didn't start getting traction until its 5th year.
Wow.
Most people don't know that. So he did all the work, and he kept marketing, and he kept going on podcasts, and he kept doing blogs, but it didn't really take off, but he kept going. So Ruhlin took the same approach, which is, hey, I'm doing podcast interviews every week. I am writing blogs. I am doing whatever social media. I'm reaching out. I'm giving out books. I'm doing everything I can. And it's a 5-year launch. So now 6 years into Giftology, or 7 years, it's selling more now than it did in the first year. Wow. But that does not happen with most books. So for me, I basically said 5-year launch. The launch is not May 2nd, 2022. The launch is May 2nd, 2027. So you're all invited to the party. It's 4 years and 11 months from now.
I'm coming there.
So, but what I do is every day I have a list, and there's about 25 different items I can do, which means like this: be on a podcast, give out a book, mail out books for free, sell, hand, signed books, ask for a review, all these different things. And I swore to myself, and I made a pact to do 25 of those action steps a day, 5 days a week for 5 years. And once you set that, you go, okay. So, but I can tell you so many things are happening because of that. And I think, if I wouldn't have done that, if I would have said, it's a month thing, I'd be done already. I'd already be on to the next thing. I want this book to be significant. I want this book to actually help people. And I want it, and it's not about sales. If people reach out to me, I will give you the book. I just want the book into more people's hands. And Seth Godin told me that. He said, I asked him years ago, what mistakes am I making now that 3 years from now I will wish I didn't make? And he said, there's 2 things. One, you will wish you didn't count on your publisher to market your book for you. That's 1. And 2 is you will wish you would have gotten the book into 10,000 people's hands. So I took that approach, one way or the other, whether they're buying the ebook, audiobook, physical. If I have to give it, I have to sell it personally. 10,000 people's hands is the next step. And then we go from there. So to me, it's a long game. It's, we're 6 weeks into it as we're recording. And I feel like we're just beginning, where if I didn't take that approach, I'd almost feel like it's starting to wind down.
Yeah. Well, I'm telling you, man, like, this book has content. There's some real substance to your book. And I mean that, like, it's a encouraging book. It's an inspiring book. And I think 5 years from now, it'll be just as relevant then as it is today. So I love it. I love what you've put together here. And I've got a thought for, as we head to the backstage here in a moment. I have a story I might ask you to share there. But before we wrap up this portion of the interview, Les, have you got any other questions you want to hit Vincent with before we close things down here?
Oh man, I was just going to let you know that we do believe in the message, and we've made sure that we give a copy to all of the members of our mastermind group and are going to be working through it in the next few weeks. And so this is going to help launch that as well. So thanks, man.
I so appreciate you guys doing that. That was really generous of you guys.
Well, it's generous of you to come on and be on one of our calls. We're looking forward to having you in our mastermind here in a few weeks. And so this is going to be fun. I'm going to give this podcast episode as a homework assignment to everybody ahead of time so they get to know you even more. But this is good. So Vincent, how can people get the book? How can people connect with you and stay, in touch with what you're doing? Tell us a little bit about your podcast too, because that's also a great piece of resource and content that you're putting out.
Yeah, we're actually making a shift. I've been doing a daily short form show for the last almost 3 years now, but we are making a shift because it's called the Total Life Freedom Podcast. We are shifting that to the Wealth of Connection, to be on brand with the book. And after 3 years of daily, I'm kind of starting to want a little bit of a change. So what it's going to be an interview show based around concepts of the book, with 2 solo shows a week. So it's right. I'm not sure when this will publish, but right now it's Total Life Freedom, but it's going to be called the Wealth of Connection Podcast. For the book, you can go to Amazon. It's published through Amazon. So that's the easiest way to get it. You can go to our website, totallifefreedom.com. I'm on Instagram at Total Life Freedom 1. And those are the best ways to find me.
Are you going to have to rebrand all of that then too? If you're rebranding the podcast, are you going to have to rebrand everything else to be?
That's what's looking like. Which wasn't the original plan, but as it goes on day by day, it just makes sense. So we're doing a slow, and we just did all new copy for Total Life Freedom about 4 months ago. I'm like, oh, well, we have to, but it just makes sense. Everything kind of falls in line with this. So, there's that whole sunk cost fallacy where I'm like, okay, if it's right, it's right. We make the shift and we go.
I love that. Okay, so backstage, don't tell the story here, but I'm going to ask if you're good to tell it. You good to tell the story of Fonzie and the lesson?
Fonzie, yeah.
Fonzie, am I saying that right?
Yeah, Fonzie, yeah, with the U.
With the U, okay. I said Fonzie with it, like the guy on TV. Different guy. So, all right, guys, trust me, you want to hear this story. So, Vincent, it's been a pleasure having you on the show, man. Thank you for your generosity to come on and I know you've brought value to our audience today, my friend. So all the best as you continue to move forward in getting this book launched over the next 5 years.
Thank you guys so much. You're awesome.
Thank you, man.
Well, hey, thanks for watching this episode of the EntrePastors Podcast. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you can be notified every time we release a new episode. If you'd like to get connected to other pastors who are learning to think, act, and thrive as prosperous entrepreneurs, then we invite you to check us out on Facebook. Just search for the EntrePastors Connect group, answer a few of our simple questions there, and we'd love to include you in the conversations. And if you're really ready to go to the next level, then we invite you to join our EntrePastors membership community. When you become a monthly subscriber, you will receive access to courses, exclusive community, and coaching that will help you along in your own EntrePastors journey. If there's anything else we can do to serve you, please visit us at entrepastors.com, and we will do our best to serve you there. God bless everybody. See you soon.